Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs story. Long, long ago, in a huge palace, a beautiful princess was born. Her hair was as black as ebony, her lips as red as a rose, and her skin as white as snow. She was named Snow White. She was very generous and gentle to everyone. Snow White had a stepmother, who was beautiful but utterly cruel. She had a mystical mirror to which she used to ask who the fairest lady of all is. The mirror always used to say that the queen was the fairest of all. Listening to this, she used to be content until the next day. Days passed by and Snow White grew to be an extremely beautiful girl. Then something very peculiar happened. One day when the cruel queen asked the mirror who the fairest lady of all is, the mirror answered, Snow White. Hearing this, Queen got infuriated with envy. She decided to get Snow White killed. She appointed a huntsman to take Snow White far into the woods and kill her. Although the huntsman took Snow White into the woods, he decided that he would not kill her. He told Snow White the whole scenario and left. Snow White was all alone in the forest. She was scared and completely unaware of the way to find her way out of the woods. She started sobbing and running through the stones and thorns. It was getting dark when she finally saw a small house. She took a sigh of relief and approached the house. She entered the house but found no one there. Everything in the house was little. The house looked messy. She cleaned the house, and when she was exhausted, she lay across 7 small beds in a row. After some time, the residents of the house, 7 dwarfs, returned from an exhaustive day at the mines. They were startled to see their house so clean. Then they saw Snow White sleeping in their beds. They screamed with shock. Snow White woke up hearing them shout. She too cried out in astonishment. Then, all the dwarfs introduced themselves to Snow White and asked who she was and what she was doing in their house. Snow White acquainted them with the whole incident with the huntsman and how she found her way to the house of the 7 dwarfs. The dwarfs felt pity for her. They told her that she can stay in the house if she can help them with the household chores and make them suppers. Snow White happily accepted the condition, and they all started living merrily together. During the day when she used to be alone at home, she used to play with the small birds and animals around the home. She was very content with her peaceful life. The cruel queen, in the misconception of death of Snow White, proudly asked the mirror the same question yet again, who is the fairest lady of all? And to her biggest shock, got the reply from the mirror, Snow White. She was fiercely puzzled on hearing this. She understood that she has been deceived by the huntsman. This time, she decided to take the charge herself and kill Snow White. She went to her secret room and poisoned an apple. It was so heavily poisoned that even a small bite could kill the person who eats it. She impersonated herself as a hag and left for the dwarf's house. Reaching the dwarf's house, the wicked queen knocked on the door. In order to keep her safe, Snow White was forbidden by the dwarfs to open the door to strangers. Snow White opened the window and asked the purpose of the old lady at the door. The queen in disguise told Snow White that she is selling the tastiest apples. Reluctant to take it at first, poor Snow White fell into the trap and got enticed by the beautiful apple. She merely took a bite of the poisoned apple and fell to the ground dead. The wicked queen cackled and went back to the palace. Once again, she asked the mirror who was the fairest lady of all. This time, the mirror replied, "You, my queen." She gave a loud evil laugh. When the dwarfs returned from their work, they were shocked to see Snow White lying dead on the floor. They shook her, tried talking to her, and began crying. They kept her safe inside a transparent glass coffin and made sure that one of them was always there to protect the coffin. Once it so happened that a prince was passing by the forest and he saw the coffin. He had known and loved Snow White, and when he saw her in the coffin, he asked the dwarfs what exactly had happened to her. After listening about the brutal incident, he requested the dwarfs to hand him over the coffin. The dwarfs initially denied giving the coffin, but the prince convinced them to give it to him. The princes opened the coffin and kissed Snow White's hand. With the kiss of love, she woke up at once. The prince's love for Snow White won over the wicked queen's hatred for her. People in and around the kingdom got to know about the queen's cruel act, and she was thus banished forever from the land. The prince married Snow White and they happily lived ever after. The Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs story provided above teaches us the essence of having faith and being kind. No matter how evil the force is against kindness, the latter always emerges to be victorious.